Welcome to Conscious Profits Unfiltered. This is your host, Sebastian Nam.
What up, guys? Today, I bring you Matthew Manos. Called Crazy or Genius by Forbes and recognized as one of the top 100 most influential creatives working today by How Magazine, Matthew Manos is the founder and managing director of verynice, a design strategy practice that gives half of its work away for free. Now you're thinking, what in the world? His portfolio of work has reached millions of people across the globe. verynice's client experience spans across more than 750 brands, including Apple, Disney, Google, the City of Los Angeles, and UNICEF. Matthew is also the author of How to Give Half of Your Work Away for Free and Towards a Preemptive Social Enterprise. His free tools have reached countless of people in over 170 countries, driven by a mission to redefine the way pro bono is done, all the while running a for-profit business. I know, it almost sounds confusing, and that's why you should listen to Matthew's story and tips on how a business can be built on giving. Enjoy the show. What's up, Matthew? Thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sebastian.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I'm really glad you're here. Well, the first thing I usually ask my guests is, when was your last oh shit moment? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
Oh my God. I mean, I think it's really hard to answer that question without saying COVID-19. Mm-hmm. But to be completely honest, and this is an oh shit in a very positive way, it was when we found out that we were having twins. Yes, because we knew that my wife was pregnant. But you do not know that it's twins until a little bit in there. So that was definitely my last whoa, like, oh shit moment.
That is a big oh shit moment, man. And congratulations, you guys have had him recently. So
yeah, thanks.
That's awesome, man. So I'm just going to throw out some of the media outlets that have either awarded you or written about you. Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Business Insider, Good, Wired, The Wall Street Journal, MTV, HuffPost, CBS. I mean, that's a badass list, man. That is a badass list. So congratulations. I would ask normally, like, why all the attention? But when you look at your disruptive business model, I can really see why they all want to talk about you. So it's really, really cool stuff, Matthew. And so I wanted to ask you, what is the very first thing you designed on a computer screen?
So the first thing that comes to mind, I was in high school. I was lucky enough to have a digital art class, which was basically a design class. So they were teaching us Photoshop, Illustrator. I think it was called Quark Express before it was called InDesign.
Okay.
These kind of basic platforms. And I really got into Photoshop. And the first thing I designed was I took a picture of myself, of my face on a digital camera, and made my eyes really, really big and changed the color of my hair to red. So very, very profound, piece of design work there. But that's the first thing I can remember. And I remember doing it and just thinking, wow, this is such an interesting tool. Before that, I had been really into painting and drawing and things like that. And, you can do a lot with those different materials in kind of a physical way, but there's something so cool about literally taking my face and being able to do something so strange like that.
That is cool. That's cool that you even had that class. I remember I may have been in junior high, but it was like, can't remember what it was called, but it was basically just learning just to type on Word docs. It was like the original type of Word docs. And I remember we would be, typing things on these old school computers. And the worst part was that if any minor thing happened, you couldn't save. There was not even a save feature.
Wow.
I can't even imagine not saving something. So I just remember going through just a lot of frustration, being like, this technology sucks, man. I hate computers.
Well, it's funny. I think anybody that's listening that does design work that maybe started in the last, few years, they'd probably be really surprised that in the older versions of Photoshop and Illustrator and all those, you were limited in how many edit undos you could do. There was something like, I want to say maybe 10. And if you wanted to go back further than that, you just couldn't. And it's so funny, that I remember when you could have unlimited undos, and it just was one of the best days ever.
I can hit Command Z 1,000 times.
Yeah.
That's great, man. So Matthew, you grew up skating. Do you have any like badass tricks or like big falls?
Yeah. So my kind of signature trick was the hand plant. And I say was because I still can do it. It looks really sad. I think the moment you turn 30 as a skateboarder, you are in a new class of just old man, basically. But I could still do it. But I used to be able to do it on coping. And I don't even know if I want to suggest this, but if you look me up on YouTube, you will find it from years ago for sure.
Done, dude. I'll be on it as soon as we're done recording this. I'll be on that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely had plenty of big falls too. That kind of comes with the territory. There was one time when I was going into a bowl right as someone else was going, because I was primarily a bowl invert skater in my prime, and right as I dropped in, they dropped in, and I chose to duck, and they chose to try to jump over me, and they ended up kicking me in the head, and I had a concussion.
Oh, so shit.
That was not a great day.
No, not a good day. Yeah. I can picture that perfectly, actually.
Yeah.
Were you skating here in Venice?
So I have. I grew up in the Bay Area, so most of the skate parks that I would hit up were up there, especially the Sunnyvale skate park in Pacifica. And when I moved down to LA, which was in 2006, I would skateboard in Santa Monica a lot, take the bus there from UCLA, and I was actually at the Venice skate park on opening day too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. So, Matthew, there are two schools of thought. One is give value away for free and it'll come back tenfold. And then you've got the school of thought, which is give nothing away for free, set your prices high so you can really value yourself highly. I don't think that there's anything wrong with either school of thought. I think they both work, in its own way. And clearly you went with the former, right? So you met somebody skateboarding actually that inspired you to go the pro bono way. Tell us what that was like and what was it that inspired you to go that way?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I was at a skate park. This was actually in Sunnyvale, California. And there was a guy there that was the founder of a nonprofit organization who I had met. And it was really cool moment. The rumors are true. Everyone and their mother in Silicon Valley is the founder of something. So it wasn't necessarily the first time I had met someone that sort of started something, but it was the first time I met someone that started a nonprofit. And that was just so different. The way that he talked about how passionate he was about the cause and so on really kind of was contagious for me. And it was around that time that I was actually doing that stuff in Photoshop to my face and eyes. It was around that age I was 16. And I had offered to design him some stickers just to kind of promote his organization. And that became my first pro bono project. Funny enough, or as you can imagine, at that age, I didn't really know what pro bono was. I hadn't heard of it. But my dad growing up was a lawyer. And pro bono is really big in the legal industry. They're required to do it to some extent in law school, for example. And so, when I came home kind of excited saying, hey, I'm going to volunteer to design some stickers for this guy, he explained to me, oh, that's actually pro bono. And that's what kind of turned me on to that whole world. And got me kind of excited about it.
That's awesome. So share with us, Matthew, what is the journey of your company, verynice, like where it started with design and a little bit of the basics of your business model. We'll get a little bit into more detail. What are the basics of your business model?
Yeah, absolutely. So verynice launched actually just a few years after that encounter at the skate park, and it launched originally what I thought would be a student group. I was in my sophomore, maybe junior year of college at UCLA, and I was learning design. I was studying design, really excited about design, but had this itch of how can I, apply what I'm learning in the real world or outside of the classroom? And basically, to scratch that itch, started offering to do design work for different student groups on campus and kind of local nonprofit organizations that I would meet on Craigslist, which is another thing that kind of makes me sound ancient, I guess, at this point. But yeah, and that was primarily graphic design work. So I was really into doing logo designs, flyers or sort of marketing collateral and websites at that time. And that was in 2008 when we officially launched as verynice. From there, about maybe 3 or 4 years into it, I started to learn more about kind of how expansive design can be. Design thinking was starting to be written about more, in Harvard Business Review and Wired and all of these different places. And it kind of intrigued me, this idea that a creative mindset could be applied to larger problems.
Hey guys, I just want to remind you, if you want to find more content like this, you can visit sebastiannaum.com. That's Sebastian, naum.com. You can also get a ton of other marketing resources from myself and my agencies, ranging from SEO to social media, influencer marketing, branding, web development, and more. Again, that's sebastiannaum.com. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.
And so that's what really sort of got me on the journey that I'm on now, which is more of being a design strategist. So really, working with clients to identify what their needs are or what problems they're facing, working with their stakeholders or kind of people to learn what their pain points are, and trying to build a bridge between that by offering up a strategy or a solution of some sort. So it's kind of interesting. verynice started as a graphic design company. We actually don't do that anymore. So what it's done has changed drastically over the years, but what's always been at the center of it is our mission. That's been the thing that hasn't changed, which is to give half of our services away for free to nonprofit organizations.
That is so huge, and it's so important to realize the importance of maintaining the mission, but being able to adapt and transition, your services and what you offer. But that mission is so important to keep. And so, how do you choose who gets pro bono versus, charging them, or who gets a discount, who gets pro bono and who gets full price? How does that work for the company?
Yeah, so, it used to be really loose. It used to basically be if you were making some kind of an impact, I was going to offer you pro bono work. If you weren't, then it's kind of like a full market rate type of thing, like a typical consultancy would operate. And as the years went on, we started getting a lot more intentional about how we do pro bono. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But where we're at now is if you're a grassroots organization, so if you are, around $1 million or less in annual budget, you're looking at a full pro bono experience with us. And then discounts come kind of in gradual increments. So if you're a really large organization, we'll give you 50% still, actually. And then if you are a for-profit, but you're a social enterprise, we give a 10% discount. So what's kind of cool is we went from very loose rules to now it's just kind of fitting people into these categories. And it's allowed us to actually extend the benefit of pro bono to way more people. It used to be just black or white, pro bono or paid. And when we started introducing this sliding scale model, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it started to allow us to work with larger nonprofits that maybe still didn't have the budget that a private sector client might have, but had a little bit, and it allowed us to kind of meet them halfway and make that happen. And kind of what this is all about is really institutionalizing pro bono. It's kind of the fancy way that I put it, which is you hear a lot of people, I say, hey, we give half of our work away for free. And they say, oh, I do too. And they start laughing, right. What I kind of try to say is a lot of people are doing pro bono work. Maybe they don't actually intend to do that pro bono work. It just kind of happens. And you're smiling. I mean, I know you've probably been through that too. And it just kind of happens with clients. And what I kind of recommend is actually, if you want to do that, make some rules, make a policy around it, and be sort of vocal about that. And people will know if they qualify for it, if they don't. And I think that was a big game changer for us, is just being really transparent and open about how our model works in general.
I think it's really cool. It's a really great concept because a lot of people are giving away value for free in order to get awareness or whatever it is that their mission is. I think your mission is just really clear about the reasons that you do it and who you do it for, and fitting that into those buckets is what makes your model successful, which is really, really cool. And another thing that I think you can tell me a little bit more about that makes your model successful is that you treat your pro bono clients the same exact way as you would treat any other clients. Because a lot of times people are like, well, I'm doing this stuff for free, or we're doing this for free or at no cost. So it's like, it just kind of goes to the bottom of the bucket, or the bottom of the list, and gets less attention. That's not the case with you guys. So it's just like a regular client, correct?
Exactly. And, funny enough, it sort of always has been, because verynice really launched to do this. It launched to do pro bono work. So for us to kind of toss it aside would be counterintuitive.
Yeah, of course.
But, we do take it to a fairly extreme level where, we, for example, years ago, we had this nonprofit, this pro bono client, and the engagement kind of went on, and there was scope creep and, all of these issues. And I kind of was reflecting on that project and saying, why is it that that's happening with this project, but it doesn't really happen with our paid projects as much? Like, how is it that I'm doing those? And a little light bulb went off of, oh yeah, our paid projects have contracts, right? Which say, this is the scope, this is the timeline, this is what we do, therefore this is what we won't do. Why don't I do that for pro bono clients? And, I kind of started looking up pro bono agreements. Is there anything out there? And realized that there wasn't. And probably for good reason, because, an agreement that has no money attached to it it's kind of silly, but I think what it did for us, and we haven't had any issues since we implemented this, what it did for us is it allowed us to really make it just completely clear, this is what we are offering. Like, this is what we are able to do. And we're both going to sign this, and we're going to commit to it, and we're going to stick to it. And,
yeah,
I think that was really a kind of a game changer for us. And one of the things I ended up doing is I wrote a book called How to Give Half of Your Work Away for Free, which is about exactly what the title says. And one of the things that includes, and this is available for free online, is our pro bono agreement template that we actually use. So, So yeah, if anyone that's listening wants to try that out, you can find that at givehalf.co.
That's awesome. And so speaking of Give Half, you then created a campaign called Give All, and you guys created a toolkit. So what was that about? Because that really was to further expand or scale your mission of having, these companies have all these tools available to them, right? So what was that about?
Yeah, so we had just hit 10 years old. That was in April 2018.
Congrats.
And thanks. Yeah. And when we hit that milestone, first of all, I kind of had a moment of, wow, I can't believe I'm still doing this. Like, this was this idea I had in college, and
That's
it's
so cool.
And now it's 2 years since then, actually. So now it's just still doing this. But I think when you hit a big milestone like that, whether it's like 5 years is a big milestone for businesses, 10, I'm sure 15, 20, they all feel this way. After a while, you start to think, am I making the impact that I sought out to make, right? Like, I don't really have to be doing this anymore. Why am I doing this? All those kinds of questions just sort of pop up. And what I realized was that, funny enough, pro bono hasn't changed since the late 1800s. That's kind of when it was established. It's always been, face-to-face consulting, human to human, collaborating, etc. And I was kind of thinking about that, and I realized that no matter how much pro bono work we do, there's going to be a limit, because we're people, and there's the limit of time. And what would happen if we moved from a give half model to a give all model? Like, how would that was kind of the question I posed to myself. And the answer was realizing that a lot of our strategy work, not to like downplay it, because I think it's great work, can be templatized to an extent. It can be step by step written out, and maybe it's not going to be as great as if you hired a consultant, but if you have very clear instructions in front of you, a lot of these are just kind of steps or frameworks or processes. And so I looked at everything we had been doing and kind of went to town, like writing 9 toolkits that cover 9 different methods that we have. And that became the Give All project, where we made that openly available to anyone and everyone to download for free. So yeah, that's been just that really was the start of a big new journey in kind of creating toolkits in general. But yeah, that was a really fun initiative for sure.
That's epic. Do you know how many times it's been downloaded?
It's close to 6,000 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
So it's gotten really great reach.
That's
and
amazing.
really, we don't promote it too much either, to be honest. Like, a lot of it is word of mouth. And I think that's, to me, that's the most amazing part of it is, I even hear stories of people saying like, hey, I did this with my client and now they're doing it in-house, or, hey, like, we wanted to hire someone to facilitate our board retreat, but we couldn't afford it. And so we downloaded this and we did it ourselves. And that kind of stuff is really neat. Yeah.
That's awesome. So somebody listening to this may be thinking, like considering going this route in their career with their startup, with their business. And they're like, man, but that still just sounds so stressful to just be like banking on the fact that you're going to get business back. You're created this toolkit that 6,000 people have downloaded for free, which means that they're not hiring you or paying you, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to think, but how much though has that come back? Because the more people that are there's people that are, I'm sure, that are downloading this toolkit and looking at all this information and then deciding, actually, you know what, this is actually the deciding factor, realizing that we do want to hire your company because we do want to, go further and go deeper on this, right? Has that really helped? Kind of like the whole, like maybe like a karma thing, the more you give, the more you get?
Yeah, well, so, Give All so that's a collection of 9 toolkits. What came before it is a toolkit called Models of Impact. That was my first one. And I can say that we've been able to calculate that we've seen over $1 million in revenue from that toolkit, from referrals from that toolkit.
That's great.
That was a complete shock. I mean, keep in mind, that's over, like 4 or 5 years, but that was a complete shock. That was like Give All. It was open sourcing one of our methods. And we ended up winning a huge client because they saw that. And that was kind of the validating moment that, to your point, hey, this is a really great process. Can we hire you to do it for us? These things, I think can come back. I do want to say that if somebody's interested in making tools like this, you shouldn't expect that that's going to happen.
Correct.
Because I think the moment because A, it might not. And then B, the moment that you kind of create a tool like this and make it free or pay what you want, and you're expecting something in exchange, it actually does show up in the content. Like, the content starts to feel a bit salesy. And I think part of why ours have done well is it doesn't feel like a sales pitch. It just feels like this is just it. And
I'm really glad you clarified that. So, because at the end of the day, what you see is you put out something for free. It's brought about $250,000 a year in revenue. It's probably given you a lot of press. So it's epic. But if you had gone with this intention, like this double intention of like, I'm just doing it to get seen and to get money, in return, it would have been different. Like you said, it would have shown in the actual,
it really would have.
So you have to do it with the right intentions. The mission has to really be there, and then you hope for it to come back or not. So the point is, you're doing it regardless.
I really believe that there's a lot of different types of value that you can receive from things. Money is one of those things, but one thing that I feel lucky about is how many people I've been able to connect with because of these tools, because they're online around the world, even, that I never would have met these people. And then the other thing is, it is genuinely fun. Like, I actually enjoy creating these things, and I would do it for free, and I would do it without expecting in exchange. I just think it's really fun, and that's kind of lucky to be able to do something that's just fun too.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Fun. That's really important. Fun
Absolutely.
is really important, man. Yeah. So what's really cool about that is that it's not just you getting to connect with other people, but I'm sure that from you building that tool, you got to connect other people with each other and other companies, which helped, further their missions and dreams, which is kind of a really cool, good feeling for you as well.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that blew my mind, this is probably the best example I can give. I was in Mexico City last year, and I was hanging out with somebody that uses the tool a lot. And he actually, and by a lot, I mean a lot. He told me that he has done it with 15,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And he runs these workshops, these big events, and he uses our tools, and it's just incredible. I will never meet these people that he worked with, but they, in a way I've been able to be a part of that. And that's so cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. And there's no price on that, man. That is
right. For
that
sure.
is awesome. That is so cool. So a lot of your employees that work on some of these nonprofits are actually volunteers, which is part of the reason that you can make this business model work. How important is it to have those volunteers be aligned with your mission?
Yeah.
And then kind of like, to piggyback off that, do they get to choose the nonprofit they're working on? So if somebody's really passionate about, the environment, do they get to work on a nonprofit that has to do with the environment?
Yeah, great question. So, and I think this actually gives me a chance to explain what verynice sort of looks like as a business, for those of you that are curious. We have a very small team, very small kind of core team in Los Angeles. And then, as Sebastian's alluded to, we have this really big network of collaborators. So these are people that are either paid freelancers for freelance gigs or are volunteers for pro bono projects. And we have over 900 of these people in our network. So we have a really robust, strategists, writers, designers, all kinds of people. And that the really kind of key thing that you were getting at is that they really do have to be aligned. And so aligned to the point that we actually don't even solicit for people to join. There's like one little link in the footer of our website, and that's it. We don't do, ads, recruiting, any of that. I see it as this kind of open door thing. And part of where that strategy came from, I was actually in Pasadena. This was maybe 10 years ago or longer. It's hard to remember now. And I was holding like a bunch of Chinese food, like in both hands. And sadly, it was all for me. And I was walking on the sidewalk, and this person stopped me and they said, "Oh, excuse me, do you have a few minutes to talk about the hungry?" And I felt like such an ass because I was late to something, and then yet here I was, like having all this food for myself, right? And that encounter made me realize that the only reason maybe I would have engaged with them is because of guilt. And that is not a great way to build community, right? Is through guilt. And I mean, I think, a healthy dose of guilt is good here and there, but if you're really trying to build a community, you don't want to be forcing people to join. And that's what inspired never soliciting for volunteers. So it really is truly just, if you happen to find that link, you can kind of reach out and get involved. And we do ask you about a number of things. One of them is causes that you're passionate about. And so when a project comes up with a nonprofit, that's maybe in the healthcare space, and if we do need a volunteer for it, we will look for somebody that is passionate about that. And I think that that's critical, because at the end of the day, nobody needs to do this. Everybody is doing this because they want to. And I think that's what makes it so special as a community. Yeah.
That's so cool, Matthew. I mean, this is like super inspiring. I mean, you built a business off of giving work away for free to nonprofits and organizations that you care about and have a higher purpose. And that's brought in a bunch of great for-profit business for you. Mm-hmm. You operate a lot of the nonprofit pro bono work through volunteers who you don't solicit, who come after you and say, "Hey, I want to work for you for free."
Yeah.
Because it helps them fuel their passion and mission and helps other nonprofits. And it's just, I think it's such a great example of, purpose and profit, and just such a beautiful balance. And I think it makes the world a better place. I think it helps expand just so much goodness, man. And it's epic. I love it.
Thank you.
You've been designing some cool graphics, some comics, a little bit of dark comedy here and there that I've been seeing. What do you got going on there?
Yeah, no, that's great. So I've been drawing comics probably since like middle school.
Okay.
And I actually in this frame, literally every book behind me is a comic or a graphic novel. It's kind of funny. I always feel a little embarrassed by that, because sometimes I'm on podcasts and people are like, "Oh, what book are you reading?" And I feel expected to say, some kind of like social impact book or business book, and I'm like, Prison Pit by Johnny Ryan, and so I've always been obsessed with comics, and it's been a big part of my work in a way, because of the way that I kind of do workshops or work with clients is in a very kind of strict sequence or narrative format, and I get a lot of that inspiration from comics. And I've been earlier this year, like in January, when we found out that we were having kids, I realized that it had been, 5 years that I had been saying, I want to write a graphic novel. And, finding out that we're going to have kids, knowing my life's going to change, time for these kind of passion projects might be limited for a little bit. I got to just do this thing. And so I wrote one in January, and then I've been drawing it and coloring it ever since. And it's, I have 36 pages done. It's going to be 48. And it's kind of like a dark comedy, very like existential, about just the meaning of life. And it's, I think it's funny. I hope people will like it, but I also kind of don't care, because I just wanted to do it.
I love it, man. I can't wait to read it. And I like that you're actually getting to do it just because you're passionate about it. And you don't care if people like it or not.
For sure.
Which is awesome. Matthew, you're a great example of a conscious leader. What do you think are the two most important traits that a conscious leader has to embody today?
Wow. I think one of those traits is they have to be a good storyteller. The thing, I feel like that doesn't get enough attention. I mean, a lot of people talk about storytelling, but I think it's such a core leadership skill, because what leadership is in a way helping to make things that are very complex, very just clear, so that people can see themselves in it and choose to be involved or not. I think that was something that has always really helped me. And, and I kind of joke about the comics, but to me, comics are one of the most complex forms of storytelling that there are, because it's these still images in a sequence. You cannot control timing that people are experiencing them in, and they can be so deep. So I think storytelling is key. Another one that's sort of cliche, I'm sure a lot of people say, is empathy. And part of why I think that's so important is, to be a good leader, you have to have lived a lot of the different roles that you might be managing. So I'm kind of talking about empathy for your team. For example, with verynice, I was the accountant, I was the bookkeeper, I was the marketer, I was the designer. At some point, I had people for all of those different roles, but I had done them, albeit in a not very great way. But I had done those things, and I think it allowed me to appreciate the people that I work with more. And I think that that's something that every leader should strive for, is start a little bit slow, try to wear a lot of hats and gradually take one off at a time and see what happens.
That's huge. I think it's really important. I talk about it all the time. I like to call it the janitor effect. You have to, like, at some point have swept the floors and cleaned the bathrooms,
Absolutely.
And the first thing you said, I've asked this question to a lot of people, and I, not just in this podcast, but I ask it all the time. And what you said about storytelling, man, that's epic. I've never heard that before. And I love how you explained it and the importance of it. And it's so true. It's not just about being a marketer or a designer. It doesn't matter what you are. If you're a leader and you want to be a conscious leader, if you can tell stories in a way that inspires, in a way that gets your mission across, It's so important in a way that you can maybe draw analogies so that people understand things better. So cool that you said that, and I'm glad you brought that up, Matthew. That's a great point. Yeah. So how can people get a hold of you? Where should people follow you and Very Nice?
Yeah, well, so you can learn more about Very Nice on our website at verynice.co. Another really big project we have is called Reginald, which is at reginald.co. And that's actually where we house all of our toolkits that we've been talking about. So we talked about Give All today, Models of Impact. There's a bunch more on there too. So I do hope people, go there and just download everything and tell people. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram at Very Nice Instagram too. So you can DM me if you have a question or anything like that.
Perfect. I love it. I'm definitely going to be going on there and downloading. I already follow you and I love your content. So keep it up, Matthew. Keep doing you, man. Keep being a conscious leader. I'm proud of everything you're doing, and it's very inspiring to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other people. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Sebastian. Likewise.
Thank you. Hey guys, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. It takes a lot to put these things together, but I truly love doing it. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, and you listen to it on audio podcast, please take some time to give it a review. It would really mean a lot to me. And if you watch the video, please go ahead and just click subscribe and share it with somebody that you think would like it. It would really mean the world to me, and it helps keep the show alive. Visit sebastiannaum.com for more content and follow me on Instagram at sebnaum. That's SEBNAUM. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I know it is valuable. I hope you have a great rest of the day and week. Till next time.